Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Slamhub Wrestling. Myself, Suprit, and this is your AEW Dynamite review for September 8th, 2021.
8th. Yep.
So, joined by Ridwan here. What a week, man. What a week.
It's been a wild week in professional wrestling, and certainly for all the good reasons, man. It's like wrestling has been cool again, which is great to see.
And I learned a lot of things. Like, I didn't know Rancid was a big band. Number two, I
Yes.
didn't know that it was not Mikey Ruckus, but it was someone else who created the theme for Bryan Danielson.
Yes. It was like later on Spotify, but it was also mentioned as Bryan Danielson walkout theme. And it is kind of shocking at the same time. It was kind of expected from Bryan Danielson to get along with that. Like he's like we'll discuss this more when we eventually get to it.
But what did you think about the Dynamite show here? I thought it was decentish.
Yes, I felt it was pretty it was quite a wild show. Like it was all over the place. It was largely like filled with segments. Most of them were delivered, over delivered, let's just say, or knocked it out of the park. Some of them were just there. Like the matches were not so great as much as the segments. It was in that sense.
But we'll get to that. Like, let's talk about the card here. We had Dustin Rhodes versus Malakai Black. We had guys like CM Punk, Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson. They had interview segments. We had Ruby Soho facing Jamie Hayter. And of course, in the main event, we had Minoru Suzuki facing John Moxley, the hometown hero in Cincinnati. But before that, if you're new to Slamhub Wrestling, then make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Check out our other content available in the description below. All links provided. But we were talking about Bryan Danielson. Do you know the real reason that we didn't get to hear Final Countdown? Because that had to be the theme that he was supposed to debut with, but it didn't happen.
Yes, it was expected, rather, because obviously, like it was a very expensive song to license, as we discussed in the All Out review, and like I'm surprised by the fact that it was actually supposed to be the theme, let alone Daniel even considering it, because again, like it's documented that he disliked the song while he was using it on the independent scene. Hence, he had to change the song to something called Self Esteem by the Offsprings. So he was using that before he joined WWE and took off his career there. But like I mentioned, like it's still surprising that he actually considered bringing the Final Countdown. But hopefully there's something like they strike a deal and have that song being played on AEW shows, because it's certainly, it would be 1,000 times better than whatever we are listening to right now.
It's kind of catching on. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. The worst part is like when he actually came out the first time, I hated the theme, but now, I mean, it's slowly, like, tingily, it's growing on me, like little bit. I was like I wasn't expecting the Final Countdown to play while, I mean, at All Out. And after that, like when the song played, I was just like, but now it's like slowly and steadily, it's kind of growing on me. But again, like, if I was given a chance, I mean, definitely I'd choose the Final Countdown.
But speaking about growing, man, the ratings for Dynamite are growing because this
Yeah.
week they hit a big one here. They did cross the million mark. I think it was 1.32,
1.313 to be exact.
which is, I think that's the second biggest number ever, or the first one.
Yes, I like it was mentioned in the reports that it was the second highest Dynamite rating ever, which is news to me because I thought this would be the biggest one. And at this point, this is what the Raw ratings are on an average. So it's huge for AEW in that sense.
What did Jesse Raw do?
I think it was around 1.7 or 1.8. And they didn't have much going on, and the ratings have just been around that corner. So I think the lowest that they did last month was around 1.4, and AEW getting to 1.3 itself is like huge.
Because it was from all the hype from all out. So everyone had to check out Dynamite.
Oh, for sure. And they didn't even like advertise guys like Cole, Bryan until probably 2 hours or 3 hours before the show, which is again, speaks for itself.
But yeah, that's pretty much a big number. But like I said, there was hype for pay-per-view, and don't be surprised if the rating, kind of goes down. It has to, right?
Yeah, eventually. What goes up must come down, right?
Yeah, like it's not going to be like this, a downhill. It has to be a little staggering type of, wave. But
Yes, like
crazy number, man, crazy number if you think about it. If they are getting
yes,
that close to Raw in the overall ratings. We know that they are beating them in
yes.
the demos, but overall rating, that's kind of a big deal as well.
Oh, it's huge. I mean, it's only going to get better from here. Like in the near future, it's going to get, like you mentioned, it's going to be either stagnant or, it'll be a topsy-turvy thing. But, if there is a way they can find to top this, with, obviously now that they have Punk and Bryan, suppose if they get like, more bigger stars, or perhaps more they fill with more more household names, they're only going to get better, and they're going to get more ratings from there, which is again a huge thing for them and a great thing for wrestling overall.
But the moral of the story is Suzuki equals ratings.
Yes, murder grandpa is the biggest draw in wrestling right now, which is great.
But they kicked off Dynamite here in Cincinnati with Dustin Rhodes versus Malakai Black. I first thought the Cincinnati crowd was not your typical AEW crowd, hearing the reaction.
Yes, I mean for some people it was like they were going infested full on SmackDown. In some cases it was there, like your average normal crowd as you would expect at a wrestling show, which is, I think, it's a fair middle ground in terms of how you want to judge it in the grand scheme of things.
So, like I said, Dustin Rhodes versus Malakai Black is part of the whole, destroying the Nightmare Family, shtick. The match, it was going good, but what hampered this are the botches and the little. It came out a little off. But what did you think about this match? And even the whole bit with let me say it right now only. The whole bit with the match was done, and then they announced Cody Rhodes versus Malakai Black. All of a sudden, kind of felt flat, I guess, because the other two matches he was having, it was little continuation of who's going to be next. So it was, but here they kind of it came up a little flat, I guess. What do you think about this match and the whole situation here?
The match was pretty for me. Like, I thought this match could have been a lot better if they put on their if they were giving more than what they were offering in this match altogether. But there was like the noted botches were there, and obviously Dustin selling the knee, it wasn't really working, because even at his offense he was still struggling to get hold of whatever Malakai was doing. And there was one noticeably awful botch of the power slam that Dustin does from the off the rope, and Dustin just moved anyway, and then he does it again. That looked more like a botch and less like a planned spot, which was pretty
That
and
was
then,
a
like,
that was a OBS glitch, if you will.
yeah, it was. And then from there, like, I mean, match was like pretty sloppy in parts. Some moments were there, but overall I think it left a lot to be desired, given the talent that they had in the ring. Obviously Dustin, at probably, he's what, 53, 54 now, can still go. He can still put on good matches. And Malakai's run so far has been incredible. So obviously there was like a good amount of hype getting into it, but unfortunately did not deliver as much as we expected. But speaking of the Cody thing, I think they announced it like later in the show. They didn't announce it like right after this. But again, like I do agree that they should have had like Cody return, and like given that Malakai has been tearing through the entire Nightmare family, it only made sense that Cody could come back and decide to take revenge. And they've officially announced the match to be at the Arthur Ashe show that they're doing in New York City. So
which is in 2 weeks.
I don't. Yeah, it's on September 22nd, so exactly 12 days from now. And like, I don't know, dude. Like, I sincerely hope that Malakai wins this, because I have a bad feeling that Cody's getting his win back. Like,
Let's see, we'll get to that, but let's talk some highlights here. Like, obviously, like you said, it had some moments. Like, they started off with from the get-go, we had a Dustin Rhodes going through a table, and from there it was all Malakai Black, dominating. At one point, Dustin Rhodes hit a Canadian destroyer or a Texan destroyer, if you will, and
yeah,
there was
it looked pretty good.
yeah, it
He
did.
does it pretty well. Yeah.
And there was this small elements of the exposed turnbuckle, and then there was this spot where Malakai introduced the shoe of Cody Rhodes and put it into the face of Dustin Rhodes. So this caused a little you could say this pumped up Dustin to get a little more offense in. So as we get to the final parts of the match, so Dustin went through this exposed turnbuckle, and then he hit a botched. Malakai hit a botched black mass that hit his shoulder only, and that's about it. And there was some other botches as well, like you said, the power slam spot where Dustin, hesitated a little bit, and and there you go. And there was another spot where I think Malakai was going for some kick, and he sold a little early. So nothing much here. Decent enough match if you want to ignore the botches. And they also showed Dustin bleeding from the mouth, which didn't look good after the botch. So yeah, this is all leading towards the Cody match. Hopefully, if you are this time, it has to be a big match like LND match, but you have to go with Malakai. You can't risk Malakai to take this defeat here, because it's not like MJF and Jericho where MJF finally takes a L. At least that had some kind of momentum. This also has, but it's going to hamper Malakai in the long run, I guess.
Yes, if Cody can actually take a loss, like even if he loses, even if he loses, he's still bulletproof. He's just going to come back stronger, deliver that babyface promo, be all America, America, and then he'll be back. But for Malakai, it'll be disturbing for all of his fans, and it'll be a little, I don't want to say like burial, but like it's going to hamper Malakai in the long run, because if he loses to someone like Cody, I don't know how seriously are you going to take him after that, given what he tries, what he brings to the table, and what his character, what his mistake is. It's going to go like that.
That crowd is going to shit on Cody if that happens.
Yes, and it's like a 20,000 crowd. It's the biggest that they've pulling. It's the biggest that they're pulling in right now. Like ever since AEW started.
But let's see, man. But speaking about Cody, have you seen something is going on with Cody Rhodes? He's teasing a lot of stuff here with his character.
Yes, he was posting about Stardust out of nowhere on his Instagram and Twitter.
And
it's
then
a tease, obviously, but he's not going to go into an entirely weird direction. But let's see what happens. What is he trying to do?
maybe he's signaling a heel turn, or is this a new kind of alter ego character?
Probably, but I would like to see a heel Cody Rhodes at this point. Like whatever he does, it's like a borderline heelish. Whatever, like from the stuff with Ogogo and like going all America. Even if it was trying to appeal to like a more US, it was like an American crowd. It was still heelish, like knocking down a foreigner. It's not what you expect in wrestling, especially in AEW where you're trying to promote diversity and etc.
We'll have to wait and see, man. But we heard from the new AEW Tag Team Champions, the Lucha Bros. They were talking about their big match from the pay-per-view and how they are finally able to, get the tag titles, and now they are the best tag team in the universe, etc., etc. Also, we heard from Proud and Powerful that they also
Yeah.
talk about their match from FTR, and now they want to focus on other tag teams in the division. You could see where this is all leading towards. Maybe a big matchup at the AfterAfter show. It has to happen, right? PNP versus Lucha Bros.
It does again, like I think it was Sean Ross Sapp who speculated that it could happen. But again, like it's too soon. If it happens, it's too soon for Lucha Bros to lose it because it's a hometown crowd for Proud and Powerful. And given their rankings, they need to earn a few wins, and the show is just too. If you want to count Rampage, it's just 3 shows away. So it's still 2 shows away rather. It's still pretty weird if they no I actually 3 shows because there are 2 Rampage and 1 Dynamite coming in, so they have to like win so much. They have to start bad or something in order to get that title shot. And I think they are like three right now because when they defeated FTR, they were at 4. I mean, before winning the match versus FTR, they were 4 heading into it, and now they must be 3. So they have to really start bad if they want to get that tag title opportunity versus Lucha Bros.
Or
If eventually if they want to do it, probably it's at Full Gear or the Revolution after. But
or do we
it's not
even have to
gonna be yet.
see them defend the titles at AfterAfter?
Yes, but again, depends on who is at the top of the rankings right now.
Yeah, it does make sense for not to have this kind of situation with Lucha Bros, facing this top tag team. Maybe you can do Proud and Powerful versus someone else for that hometown pop. That's it.
Probably I would like to see FTR if at anything, like they are like both 1 wins a piece and they do hopefully a 2 out of 3 falls match because it only makes sense that way. Like both of them have 1 wins each. Who is the better team at the end of the day? Even if like we are past the feud now, it's like all Pinnacle Inner Circle thing is we are behind that, which is again good to see. But I wouldn't be against seeing FTR and Proud and Powerful go at it one last time.
I think they should
At
save
least
it.
now.
I think they should save it for a bigger moment, I guess. Don't give it
Yeah.
away just like that for a New York show.
Yes, probably for a pay-per-view, and if either of these teams, even for a tag title shot.
But moving on, we had CM Punk. He was addressing his situation here, and I have to say, man, every time this guy comes out, it's a sight to see. I love this guy's presence on Dynamite every week now. I said it every week because he feels genuine and original. It doesn't feel like he's cutting a promo over.
Totally. And like it's finally sunk into me that CM Punk is all elite. Like this entire run leading up to the Derby match was like a dream. I don't want to say fever dream, but it was a dream. Like it's happening. Is it actually happening? Oh my God, it has actually happened. And he was like hyping himself up and then he's like bigging up Darby, and obviously he goes on to win the match, and still gets respect from Sting and Darby. It's just so far they've hit all the right notes with CM Punk. But now, like you've mentioned, like it feels genuine, like he's having a normal conversation. It's not even a promo, which is also amazing. and he's like a walking ambassador for the company right now, because whenever he comes out, he's just endorsing other people more so than him. Even in the promo, that his return promo, the first thing he did was put Britt Baker over. So he's like, it's like he's giving back to the business, and it's a beautiful sight altogether. And you've mentioned also, like, even if it's every week, I hope, and he himself admitted it at once, like, he's going to keep enjoying the crowd supporting him until
This
the
wears out.
presence, yeah, this wears out. It doesn't even feel that way right now.
He's getting over by the week by week.
I mean, he doesn't have to get over, he already is.
But from the top, he's not wasting any time here. He is, talking about Darby Allin and Sting, and the whole performance from, the pay-per-view, thanks them. And then he gets to, promoting the show, just like he did with Britt Baker, he's promoting others. And he promoted in a way like we have the king of pancreas, Minoru Suzuki, facing the hometown maniac, John Moxley. Like, bro, he is one of us. He's a mark like us, man. And then
Yeah,
he talks about Bryan Danielson, Ruby. So, like, this guy is all over the place.
yes, and then he indulges into, like, asking the fans what's next for CM Punk, and they all are giving mixed answers, but all I could hear was Moxley, even though it was in a more faded sense. Could you decipher what else were they chanting for apart from Moxley?
Same. I couldn't really make. Maybe Kenny. I think some people were going for Kenny.
I could just hear Moxley, and that was like in a more faded sense. And it's like Moxley, and you can't hear anything else but Moxley. So yeah, I mean, that's a dream match for later down the line, but not anytime soon.
But I have to say, man, this guy has the crowd in the palm of his hand.
And he keeps milking it, which is great.
Love it.
That's how you should do as a babyface.
Basically, man. But as he was doing this, I have to point out one thing here. While Punk was making his big entrance, Tazz, we don't have Excalibur here because I think he's gonna get married in a couple of days, I guess. So
Yes.
Tazz is taking his place, and when Punk was making his entrance, Tazz was sounding a little bitter from the get-go. That Punk is this biggest star in AEW, and he was, taking a little offense to that, saying that it's everyone's contribution or something like that. So he would eventually, interrupt Punk when he was asking the fans' approval about his next opponent. So he just casually interrupts Punk, and Punk took little offense to that. And Tazz was basically saying, whatever you do, don't mention Team Tazz's name. Don't get involved in Team Tazz's members. Technically, you're saying, please mention Team Tazz. Please, get involved with us members because we need it. We desperately need it. So there you go.
In Hindi we say, right, Upar wala tumhara bhala karega, like God will help you if you do. So it was like that.
So Punk was, took little offense that, Tazz was kind of interrupting him. Then we see the Team Tazz members come out, and he was basically saying, I want Starks. Because the reason is he was mentioning all these names from the get-go. His top 5 list: Darby, Bryan Pillman, Hobbs, Starks. 2 members are from Team Taz only. So it kind of made sense, I guess. So the Team Taz members show up, Hook and Hobbs. Starks is missing, by the way. So they little go back and forth, and Punk hit Taz's line, which is, I don't remember right now.
Beat me if you can, survive if I let you.
And then a mic drop.
Yep. That was the end of the promo, because I mean, it was the catchphrase, and catchphrase are usually meant to do that. But continue.
And by the way, before we go in depth in this whole situation, he also did a shout out to Linda. I didn't know who Linda was. Then he mentioned Dark Side of the Ring. That Linda from the Bryan Pillman story. So we'll be seeing a lot of those guys over there, but he gave a good shout out to them. Genuine baby face. But back to this Team Taz thing. like I said, Punk, going after Team Taz, it doesn't sound that interesting. But if you think about where Team Taz is right now, he could really bring those guys from here to here. If they are in the lower mid cards or the undercard, you will at least bring them to a upper mid card level, and people will be talking a lot about those guys. So it would make sense if you think about it like that way.
Yes, I mean, Team Taz is one of my favorite things on AEW, so I'm definitely excited for that. And I've mentioned, like, I've been waxing lyrical about Ricky Starks and Hobbs ever since I started reviewing AEW Dynamite. And I mean, it's kind of a dream come true, but at the same time, like, I'm thoroughly excited for this because for the reasons that you mentioned, like, having them go after CM Punk will get them up on the totem pole. And obviously, like, it's a big shot in the arm for Team Taz again. Like, the feud with Brian Cage, even though it should be bigger than what it is, it's still, it's still muddling, and it's not reaching to those levels that you would expect of a breakup feud. Regardless, again, Punk and Taz, if you've played SmackDown versus Raw 2009, they've been having heat forever. I mean, it's a joke, but yeah, I mean, when CM Punk was, calling out the guys, and now, people have already started fantasy booking CM Punk versus Hook, which is hilarious. But CM Punk versus Ricky Starks, the promos are going to be amazing. The Starks is like, he's charismatic as hell. He's going to get, he's going to get over in a huge way, battling CM Punk or mic to mic, face to face. And Punk is going to bring the best out of these guys in the ring. There's like a lot of upside in this feud altogether, and especially Hobbs. Especially, I mean, we'll get to more about Hobbs as we review his match. But for him, like last year before joining Team Taz, he was just there. So I think my first impression of Hobbs was when Moxley just randomly called him out, and they had a 6-man tag: Mox, Darby, and Hobbs versus Cage, and Cage, Starks, and probably someone else. Or was it a normal tag match? I don't exactly remember. But from there, him joining Team Taz, even if like they had that feud with Sting and Darby, which went forever. From there to now, I mean, Hobbs has come leaps and bounds from there, if you think about it.
But so does that mean he's going after every member, right, of Team Taz?
Yes, he's like send. I didn't even mention guys from this thing. Like you mentioned, right? Please mention. Please mention. And then he's like, oh, so I did not mention, but you can send in Starks. You can send in Hook. You can send in Hobbs. And then he drops the catchphrase, "Beat me if you can, survive if I let you," which was Taz's catchphrase in ECW back then. And after that, when they tried to make Brian Cage the new Taz when he joined AEW, unfortunately that didn't work out. But he was basically given whatever made Taz cool in the first place, and he was like, take all my stuff and get over. And sadly he did not. So there you go. Like Starks again, he's the star of the stable. And Punk versus the Team Taz guys, sign me up.
Punk versus Hook, main eventing Arthur Ashe. Sign me up.
Has to happen. 100%.
But we did have some mention of Brian Cage and Ricky Starks again. What's happening over there?
So last week we saw Starks and Cage and Hobbs having a one-on-one, which Hobbs goes on to win after Starks hits him with the belt. And given Brian Cage has been pleading for a one-on-one match with Starks, and then Starks says okay, it just like cut it to that. They didn't even go more than that. So probably we'll be getting in another 2 weeks. I have a feeling it's at the AfterAfter show that they do, just to end this feud with. And speaking of Brian Cage, he's been in the news lately.
He's trending on Twitter, I guess.
Yes, currently as we speak right now.
Thanks to Melissa Santos,
his wife. Yes,
because
so she out
of nowhere is really petitioning for Brian Cage to be, used a lot better in AEW. She, like most of us, think that Brian Cage is, I could say, being underutilized.
I don't think that's the case though, because he's not getting over the way people had hoped, despite all of, like, him being the star, the front man of Team Taz. Despite those things, I think the reason that is because he's not getting over properly. But the feud has been given a fair amount of time to build itself and get translated to the crowd. And like Starks versus Cage was a pretty good match. Cage versus Hobbs wasn't that good. And beyond that, I think it's more to Cage, and it's from Tony Khan. Like he's pretty approachable, and if Cage has a problem, he can probably go to him and air his grievances. But I don't think I think it's going to be a temporary issue, and things will be back to normal in for Brian Cage. But again, it still feels a bit unnecessary to come out in public and say that.
I don't know. This is Marisa Santos. She doesn't hold back. Maybe she is a light version of Rebby Hardy. You don't want to mess with Rebby Hardy, brother. You jump off a building, you would rather do that, but never mess with Rebby Hardy.
That's a whole another ballgame.
But in all seriousness, Brian Cage, I think he deserves better. You need to fix a lot of his character issues. He's not getting over as a babyface.
He couldn't rub an ounce of charisma from Ricky Starks' presence, as mentioned by Ricky Starks. His words, not mine.
But is it because he's not having those killer matches in AEW?
Probably, but again, like despite all of that, his ring work is indeed sloppy. So can't really blame others for that.
Sloppy means he's too indie.
Not very indie, but he botches a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if it would be the same thing if you gave a random match with Phoenix.
Yes, probably Phoenix or anyone on the roster. If he can survive in the long run, he'll probably stick around and do better for himself. But with Melissa coming out and saying that, I don't think it's going to do him any favors, at least in the near future.
Let's wait and see. But we were talking about Powerhouse Hobbs. He was about to face Dante Martin next. Dante Martin has also a small story going on with him picking up some wins. He's getting over with the fans. And there you go, man. This match was short and it was good enough. Dante was pulling off his really good, high-flying spots. Hobbs was the, big dominant guy here. So that was the entire story. By the way, Dante Martin, that missile dropkick he did was fantastic, man. The height he got on that, whoa.
The hang time, like it was such a beautiful, like he pulls these aerial moves off pretty well and very beautifully. So it's like a sight to see in itself, which is awesome. And he's getting over with the fans. They've given him enough promo time as well, and he's been picking up wins on Dark and Elevation. So it's nice to see someone like him, getting over. And he's only 20, which is also great. And like this match was more about Hobbs though, because he's number 2 on the rankings. And it was like a short and simple match just to get Hobbs over. And again, like I think JR called him a moving SUV with the way he hits his opponents, which was, I thought it was hilarious. And like even the tope con hilo that Dante Martin hit, above hook, like jumping above hook and hitting Hobbs was great. And despite that, like, and even the one spot where Dante goes for a suicide dive, tope suicida, and Hobbs just catches him and chucks him to the ring post. I thought that was great too. So all in all, it worked for both parties. Like, I'm sorry, both wrestlers. Like both of them got over in different ways. Hobbs was like the more dominant one. Dante was the underdog, and he's still like, they're still building up to that story, which is great. thumbs up for me.
So yeah, like you said, those were some really good spots here in this match. As we get to the end, Hobbs catches Martin in a spine buster. Commentators
They call it
it
powerbomb.
powerbomb for some reason, but yeah, that got him the victory. They are trying to build some momentum for Hobbs, which I think will fit in with the CM Punk story.
Yes, and also given he's number 2 and he's only picking up wins, probably a future title shot.
Do they do that?
Not at the Arthur Ashe, probably beyond that, if whatever show they do.
It depends, right? Will Hobbs be even in the top 5 or on that top 1, top 2 rankings when we get to that stage?
Yes, I mean it has to happen given the wins that they've been giving him. At the same time, he has a fair amount of momentum, and I think
will they do
Christian's
heel
number 1
versus
right now.
heel?
Right? They can do that, but probably in a way like given Omega is probably the most detestable heel in wrestling currently, that makes Hobbs the de facto babyface. Even if they can do heel versus heel, probably
They
one
never
person
did.
is like
They never done that, right? Heel versus heel in AEW.
I don't seem to remember.
Babyface versus babyface, they have done that. Heel versus heel, I never remember them doing.
I think they have. I just don't seem to remember who it was. Because I remember there was at one point where it was a heel versus heel, and like heading into that match, one of the heels was like treated as a baby face, and then once that feud got over, the person was back to being a heel. I think it was Lance Archer versus Eddie Kingston, because he was going to face Moxley, and because and then Archer tests positive for COVID, and then Eddie Kingston gets the title shot eventually. I think it was that. I don't seem to remember anyone else who fell into that.
So technically, they could do a Hobbs versus Omega.
They could do it, and given how you could trust AEW to protect both of these guys, one in victory, one in defeat. So I'd look forward to that.
But let's see, man. Let's see. You were talking about Christian Cage. You just mentioned him.
Yes.
Was it about rankings?
Yes, it was like I thought like now that he's lost the title shot to Omega, he would probably be lower down the rankings he'd go, and given Hobbs is number 2, so it only makes sense like probably with whoever is currently number 1. Is Christian still number 1, or does he have to relinquish and start from the back altogether? That's what I was just wondering. And before we jump to the next segment, I just want to get this out of the way. There was a promo from Miro and Eddie Kingston. So Eddie Kingston's basically chastising Miro for using the low blow, and he calls himself the God's favorite champion. He's just calling it bullshit, blah blah blah. And then Miro is like, "I hit you in the nuts. I had to ice my nuts after the match," which is an obvious innuendo. And I think this is definitely building up to the eventual rematch that they have, hopefully at the Arthur Ashe. Maybe not, but they are certainly they're still keeping up with this feud even after the eventual match happening at All Out. So fingers crossed we do get it, and all signs do point to that.
But moving on, we had a interview segment with Ruby Soho. Shivani was interviewing her, and she was speaking about winning the Casino Battle Royal, and then she was interrupted by Dr. Britt Baker, TMD. She comes in and instantly buries Ruby Soho, says, and there was some argument or back and forth where Ruby said that she actually helped Britt Baker, to get into the business And then Brit started, talking trash, said that you should go back to catering, the same place you were for the last 4 years, something like that. And then we would see, the heels leave, and there was a small conversation between Ruby and, Tony Schiavone, where Tony Schiavone did that DMD bit, and Ruby's focus went over Tony and said, "I know that she's your girl, but I'm gonna whoop her." So there you go. We'll be talking a lot about
Yes.
Tony Schiavone later on, but what do you think about this Matt Hardy Orange Cassidy thing? Now the story is that we could be getting a hair versus hair match.
Yep. I'm curious to see how they pull it off. Certainly, like it will definitely not be Orange Cassidy at the short end of the stick in this case. Has to be Matt Hardy because he's the heel, and Orange is like a more promising talent. He's someone he's getting over. He will be over. I mean, he is over, and he'll be getting more so. And Hardy can take a loss, but I mean, a bald Matt Hardy, imagine that. How will they pull that up?
I don't know. He will look weird.
No, for sure. The best thing is probably he'll, pitch in anyone else from his HFO to get their head shaved.
Maybe the
I
Butcher.
sense something like probably Butcher or even Mark Quinn or either probably even Angelico or Jack Evans because their thing is more about hair, which Hardy as a heel he chastise them for it and to avoid having distractions during your match, just shave your head. I don't know. I'm just throwing things on the wall right now. So could happen.
Let's see. But we had a promo from Dan Lambert, and this came out a little flat compared to the other promos. Like it was the same, he would shit on the fans, the AEW fan base, shit on the new signings here. This was new here. Like he shit on the new guys that have come in and called them kind of midgets, I guess, or tiny people, something like that. But you get my point. Basically putting over Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page, and there you go. Nothing much.
Scorpio Sky was overacting throughout the segment.
Yeah, I did sense that.
Yes, I think Page was okay. But Sky was overacting like so bad. It wasn't even coming off well, which is weird. So yeah, I mean this was the promo as aptly put by Tony Schiavone, and what we already know that this is a shot at Jim Cornette, and Tony Schiavone literally called him an old man who yells at clouds. So and we call Jim Cornette like that. So this is very much in that territory, and that's that. It was the entire point of the promo. It's just him shitting on people, the fans. That's about it.
So are we still getting this Lance Archer thing with these two guys, men of the year?
We probably would. We'll cover that eventually when
Should
we
we
get to the
save
main
that?
event.
Should we save that in
Yes,
the main event?
we'll save that in the main event.
But we're about to get Jamie Hayter versus Ruby Soho, but we kind of did get a package for the main event, hyping up of who's Suzuki and what he all about. We heard something from Mox, and there you go. So let's talk about Jamie Hayter versus Ruby Soho. I thought it was a fine little match. I think it was a good showing for Ruby Soho. And I have to say, man, Ruby Soho is right now you could say, one of the top women in AEW in terms of, how over she is.
Yes, easily. Like you don't really have besides Statlander, obviously, and I think I might have spoiled it a little. But yeah, Ruby is the top babyface in AEW, let alone pro wrestling altogether. The top female babyfaces. Let me filter that. But
Oh,
yeah, overall, this
there you go, man. You offended the Becky Lynch stance.
she's not even a babyface now, and I'm wearing a man shirt. So how's that part?
Anyways, we'll save that topic for another day.
Yes.
But Ruby Soho, man.
So yeah, she is over as hell. Like the crowd is going mental, and with the song her song is literally called Ruby Soho, so by Rancid. So the crowd was going mental, and it was like a good. I like the small touch in this was Bryce Remsburg who was refereeing this match. Like obviously we pointed it during the all out review, and again like after the moment we're getting this match, which was great, and both of them look pretty equal. So Ruby was on offense at one point. There was Hayter who was also on offense, and Hayter, like both of these women were evenly matched, and Ruby delivers the, should I call it the Soho kick now, because by the same maneuver in WWE she used to call it the right kick.
That's why we needed
So
Excalibur here.
yes, Excalibur was dearly missed throughout the show because these guys weren't doing it. I mean, no offense, but Tazz was good throughout the night, but the energy of Excalibur was missing. So she delivers the Soho kick to pick up the victory out of nowhere, which was a good thing. Like Jamie Hayter didn't see it coming, so I think it still protects her to an extent. And the main story after this was like after Soho picks up the win, she's celebrating with the fans and the referee, and Baker jumps her from behind to attack both Baker and Reba. Where then she gets saved by an attempt to save by Riho is made, but she's also beaten down. And then Chris Statlander shows up with the chair and the heels escape. So this is building up for a match, a 6-woman tag match on Rampage, which is Britt Baker, Reba, and Jamie Hayter versus Statlander, Riho, and Ruby Soho. It's going to be a good match.
Yeah, we'll have to go through Reba.
She's eating the pin for sure.
Why do I feel like there should be someone else? I don't want to see Reba Russell, or should she in this type of situation?
I mean, she can and she can't. And given it's a trios match, the heels can take a loss. It doesn't hurt Britt Baker's title run. And Reba is obviously the weakest link of the 3 or the 6 overall. So this is definitely going to happen with Ruby Soho picking up, and it further builds to their eventual title match, which is also, I have a feeling, it'll be at the AfterAfter. This also has to happen though, right?
The championship match.
That's like this is the biggest show that you have in the near future, and you want to promote it in the best way you can, and just have this title match and just keep it going, keep the momentum going.
Yeah, but about this, here you go. I will say it off the bat. Shouldn't the Iconics be in Britt Baker's stable?
The inspiration.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
I inspiration. I think this is good with Jamie Hayter, but Reba is just her assistant. She's not she's a wrestler, but she's not she's a weak link, and she can be the shield for Baker to take offense on her behalf. It works that way. I don't think the inspiration are the guys who should be doing that instead. I think things are fine the way they are currently. I don't think they should change it. They should change the domain. If anything, I'd say the inspiration should go to Impact and fight for the knockout tag titles.
There you go. I just threw it off the bat seeing this whole Reba situation. We needed someone in that Britt Baker, Reba, stable or team group, you want to call it. At once I pitched for Makito for some reason.
Makito, it worked actually once upon a time. I think it was the Revolution buy-in where she fills in for Reba and tags with Baker to win against Thunder Rosa and Riho. So it was fine in that sense. I wouldn't be against that overall. Like if Maki Ito eventually comes to US and has like a full-time future in AEW.
But Jamie Hayter is kind of benefiting now that she is with Britt Baker.
Definitely.
But yeah, man, we got this 6 women, trios match. Trios match is AEW, right? Trios match at
Yeah.
Rampage. So there you go. But moving on, we had a impromptu trios match here on Dynamite. This was the Pinnacle versus. Am I jumping forward? Yes, I am jumping a little forward.
You are, but it's fine. We can talk about this, and there's something in relation to that.
Okay, it would be
It's
a
okay.
great transition then. So yeah, this is the
Yeah.
Pinnacle versus the Dark Order which consisted of Evil Uno, Stu Grayson, and John Silver, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was a short little match here. The story was there is something going on with the Dark Order, and week by week it's getting worse. Like I think it was one of the Darks or Elevation where Evil Uno was facing five of the Dark Order,
Allen
and
Angels. Yeah. It was. I think it was dark. Yeah. Very recent episode of it.
so yeah, this was short, but there was some moments like John Silver is the most over guy in this match. He was at one point going full crazy, like taking on all three
Johnny
guys by
Hungy.
himself. Yeah,
Johnny Hungy.
Johnny Hungy all day, man. He's great.
He's
So
awesome.
the Pinnacle was really doing a great job, grounding one of the baby faces, like typical, FTR type of match here. So as we get to the end, the dissension is being seen a lot and kind of affecting the match here as well. Like I think even Uno accidentally hit someone. So as a result, we see
Silver hits Uno by accident.
there you go. So at the end, it was Stu Grayson or John Silver who took the pin.
Silver.
So Pinnacle had Silver grounded. So we had Sean Spears. He hit the C4 on Silver to get the pin, and there you go. Pinnacle got the victory, and that's that. But we get to the Dark Order members. So we see Uno, and I think it was Silver, I guess, kind of getting into the fight. Then all of a sudden, everyone is fighting with each other. So the cracks are forming. And is it related to something big in the future?
They have been teasing that, and like all signs do point to that, but again, it's a sensitive topic, like we have mentioned this in the past, and I don't want to see them break up. There was no Alex Reynolds in this case. Is he out of Dark Order? I hope not. Is he like taking a break? I hope he's not. But and then you have Anna Jay and Ty Conti coming out after when these guys are, there's a lot of infighting happening, and these guys just look at it and try to save the day for them, but it does not. But I have a feeling that more so than a Dark Order breakup, it has to be more signs pointing to Hangman eventually returning, because despite in the wake of Brody's passing and all the hardships that they faced after that, Hangman was kind of a uniting factor for them that helped the family, so to speak, it made them stronger, and things were going good for them, even if it weren't all that. But going an entirely different route and just breaking up altogether doesn't make sense. I feel it has to do more with Hangman coming back and helping things simmer. I think that will be a more logical step and something that I would be more interested than a Dark Order breakup, or having someone like another evil force takeover, which is people are obviously rumoring, people are obviously speculating to be Windham Rotunda, formerly known as Bray Wyatt, to take over Dark Order, which I don't want to see that. I just want things to be normal for Dark Order in a more good sense, in a more positive way, and Hangman returning to help save the day for these guys, which I hope happens.
At this point, Bray Wyatt is all elite.
Very much. I think even Melzer just all but confirmed it.
He can't go to Impact, right?
He could probably go if the money they offer is good, and it better be Impact rather than AEW. But who knows? If he wants to come to AEW, fair play.
Like he's a kind of a big name if you think about it. And Impact be little, a downgrade for him with the level of talent he is. Not in ring wise, but overall.
But it'll make Impact like must see. It'll be an upgrade for Impact rather than a downgrade for Wyatt or Rotunda.
Let's see, man. If he goes to Impact, good. If he comes to AEW, we'll have to wait and see.
Yes.
But shall we talk about the good stuff?
Sure, bring it on.
Like we had MJF. We'll be hearing from him after his loss from Jericho. So he makes his entrance with Wardlow, and the crowd are chanting, "You tapped out." Really good shit here, and he's really playing off with the crowd. And from the bat, he says that he has beaten Jericho in the past, before all the pay-per-view. So kind of simmers that situation like that. Like, yeah, he was 3-0 against Jericho before the pay-per-view, and that situation is now over, and he wants to move on. And from there, he started shitting on Cincinatti and called them Cincinnati and calls everything.
Cincinnati.
Yeah, and
Cincinnati.
And says that everything here in Cincinnati is mid, like everything. So he kind of shitting on the Cincinnati crowd here, and then he notices Linda, who was who is Bryan Pillman's aunt, like even Punk mentioned her earlier on the show. So he was talking a little shit to Linda. He said, "Don't make eye contact with me, or I will knock the teeth down your throat." And then he notices Bryan Pillman's sister, when he calls her 16.
Junior, by the way.
Yes, Bryan Pillman Jr. Sister, and he calls her 16 and pregnant. And he's
firing all the cylinders. And firing all the shots.
And then he decided to go face to face with Pillman's sister, and he kind of gave some mic time to her. She said that she is the daughter of the loose cannon Bryan Pillman, and the crowd goes nuts for that one. We hear Pillman chants, and MJF kind of in a carny way said that then it makes sense with looking at your facial looks, something like that. He's off the bat firing on all cylinders, like you said. And then we get to Bryan Pillman Jr. coming out. He gets a kind of a big reaction, and he's really playing off to the crowd. He decided, let's be cool. It's nothing usual. I have dealt with this shit my entire life, so I took it in that manner. Or he could have charged the ring and started beating up MJF from the get-go, right? So it made little sense. So Bryan Pillman is trying to put over the Cincinnati crowd, like everyone from here is badasses. For example, Bryan Pillman, his dad, Jon Moxley, etc. And then MJF kind of questions, are you challenging me on the mic? Like, yeah, like MJF, I have to say MJF was overshadowing Bryan Pillman. Bryan Pillman tried his best, but MJF was on some god level here on the mic. So then he mentions Bryan Pillman's mother. What's her name? Melanie, and called her Methany. And this let Pillman to jump the ring. Get into the ring and go face to face with MJF. But here comes Wardlow, and MJF encourages Wardlow, push him back, just and help me. Sorry. He was he kind of took a shot against Wardlow. Help me. Like anyone pointed out that he didn't help him actually.
Are you going to help me the same? Yeah. Are you going to help me the same way you helped me at Sunday? And then he's like, go stand at the corner and look pretty. And then Wardlow just stands like facing the crowd. He's just there, and just Pillman just beats the crap out of So they are sowing the seeds of an eventual MJF Wardlow breakup, and then Pillman just beats the shit. Pillman Jr., I should say, beats the shit out of MJF, and then Wardlow just stands there for a while and then decides to help at a delay. And then he just takes Pillman Jr. to the corner, and then Pillman Jr. just runs under him and then beats MJF to another corner. So they are sowing the seeds for MJF and a Wardlow breakup. People have been comparing this duo or this partnership to, and Wardlow himself to Batista. So the breakup, eventually when it happens, it's going to be huge. Wardlow could probably get over as a baby face, this giant baby face who is a badass. So there is a lot of potential in that. But coming back to this, so Pillman Jr. is going ape shit at MJF, and then Wardlow decides to help him, just hits him with a German suplex for his troubles. And after that, like both MJF and Wardlow have beating down Pillman Jr. until Griff Garrison shows up, and then he gets put out for his troubles. Then MJF hits him with the ring, the diamond ring, and then then they escape. So boy, it was a wild segment, like throughout, from start to finish. Like it was all over the place.
You
Going
can call
from MJF.
you can call it cheap heat, but we were not ready for a live assassination on national television.
Yes, it was for me personally, coming off the Dark Side of the Ring documentary, having watched that, to getting to this promo, it was uncomfortable for me to watch. But again, they must have agreed backstage to, like, get over these lines and, like, have this to make it look as legit as possible. And fair play to them, they did their job pretty well. Got both of these guys over, especially Pillman Jr. I mean, the crowd was mental. The crowd was like eating up whatever he was saying. That doesn't get any bigger than that for him. He's someone who's coming up the ranks as a babyface himself. And excuse me. So yeah, the crowd is going bananas for him, whatever, every word he speaks. And MJF is like the most detestable heel in wrestling. You have a babyface to counter him. It's this guy in his hometown, bigging up himself, bigging up his hometown again, putting over, like, bringing up guys like his own dad, who's a legend, and John Moxley, who's also becoming a legend. So it ticked all the right boxes for everyone involved. And so they announced later on, when Griff Garrison was attended to by the medical staff, and Pillman Jr. just talks to the camera and says that I have spoken to Tony Khan, and we are going to have a match at Arthur Ashe with MJF versus Pillman Jr. So as someone who gained like a hell of an amount of momentum from this promo alone, and getting to wrestle in front of 25,000 people and that capacity, and match at such a with such a real build, I should say, it doesn't get any better than that for him personally. And it's good to see that they're investing their stocks into a new star, and he's coming up the ranks, and someone who's going to be a bigger player for them in the near future. So fair play to everyone involved, and like kudos to everyone involved, and like fair play. So that, and there's another small tidbit that while this segment was going on in the medical room, we see the Acclaimed return to Dynamite. And then Max Caster is like, you've spoken about the match at Arthur Ashe. Well, I politicked to Tony Khan to get a match one-on-one on this upcoming Rampage. And then he gives him a bunch of flowers, and then Pillman Jr. just throws it. So it was a wild night for Pillman Jr. and in more good ways than bad. So awesome stuff.
So at least we are getting the Acclaimed on Rampage this week.
Yes, they made their return on Dark this past week, and like things have been sour for Max Caster ever since he cut that promo which got him suspended. And after that, they cut this promo where like they are trying to rap, but then it is approved by Tony Khan. It is approved by the management, and then they are just like watch Rhodes to the top. Yeah, what's the show's name for Cody Rhodes?
Roads to the top.
Yes, watch Rhodes to the top. Watch TNT. Enjoy your Dynamite, Dark, and Elevation. So it was a hilarious spin on that, but again, like after that promo, it's weird to see, if I were to root for Max Caster, it's not going to be the same feeling as it was before he cut the promo. So it's kind of weird for me personally, but I'm looking forward to this.
Ah,
Pillman Jr. has to win to build momentum for his match with MJF.
Max Caster is still Max Caster. I'm gonna love him anyway, and he's
He's
gold.
hilarious. He's
gold.
hilarious, like totally. Like he also got over on his own with such a gimmick. So fair play to that. But let's see what happens.
Did you hear MJF, Tony Khan's words from the media scrum that MJF actually pitched guys like Chris Statlander, the Acclaimed, and someone else. I think I don't know who exactly, but he was actually pitching these guys to brought attention to Tony. Look at these guys, feature them on television, and he did. And
Yeah.
see where these guys are now. Look at how
I
Chris
think-
Statlander has improved. Look at how Acclaimed are now mega over right now.
Yes, I think that clearly explains what explains the Twitter exchanges between Max Caster and MJF. I think that explains it now, because
You
Max
need another
Caster-
explanation. You need another explanation. MJF,
Nah,
Chris
I can't.
Statlander, and at least Max Caster are the students.
Yeah, they are of
for-
Kurt Hawkins.
Yes. So kind of makes sense.
I knew about MJF and Statlander. I didn't know about Caster was also trained by Kurt Hawkins.
Caster was also
kudos.
trained by Hawkins and Ryder.
No, it wasn't Ryder. It's Pat Buck from who's the producer in WWE currently.
Yes. So there you go, man.
Yeah.
And that's
Awesome
why
stuff.
Max Caster sims for MJF on Twitter, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
But speaking about this Pillman MJF thing, it's going to be good. And in a way, MJF put over Bryan Pillman here.
He did.
Like
Clearly
now,
did. Like, if the crowd weren't enough to put him over, MJF certainly did. So that's awesome.
now he's telling us that Bryan Pillman is someone to look forward to.
Yes. And they also had a feud in MLW where both of them were part of different stables. So Pillman Jr. was part of the New Foundation rather, and MJF had his own stable called the Dynasty with Richard Holiday, and I think it was Alex Hammerstone. I don't remember. But yeah, MJF was leading a stable. Pillman Jr. was a part of it, and they had a similar feud over there. So it's just revisiting it at a more global stage. Great.
But moving on, we hear from certain participants of the Casino Battle Royal, from the Women's Casino Battle Royal, like Nyla Rose. I said Nia Jax. But Nyla.
Let's have the fan shit on you.
Nyla Rose, Thunder Rosa. We also hear from Ty J and Penelope Ford and the Bunny. So they are trying to
And Jade
build.
Cargill.
Yeah, even Jade Cargill. They are trying to build something here, some matches, some future storylines, and nothing much.
Yes. Basically, they are coming off the Casino Battle Royale, saying that how did they feel getting eliminated and what is next for them. So it was just that. Man, I love Thunder Rosa. I hope like she's going to become the AEW Women's Champion eventually, but I think she's fantastic. She has to be the next AEW Women's Champion for me.
Full gear, man. Full gear.
Hopefully full gear. I wouldn't mind it later too, but yeah.
We got the time. We got the time to build stuff for that.
Yes, we do.
But let's talk about this promo from Tully Blanchard. He was, talking about, being impressed by his Pinnacle members for getting the win earlier on. And he started talking about Darby Allin and Sting. like saying he's jealous of them, and he talked to Sting, mentioned Sting here, saying that he is known for latching on to others for in his entire career. So he scheduled, talking to Tony Khan, he scheduled a match between Darby Allin and Sean Spears for next week's Dynamite. And he also kind of took a shot at Sting that we may be doing something in the near future. So there you go.
Yes. I lost you for a moment there. Could you?
We are fine now.
Sorry. Yeah, we're fine now. So you just got stuck like completely. So you could repeat the Tully Blanchard stuff.
Like I said, Tully Blanchard has kind of scheduled a match with talking to Tony Khan, of course. Darby Allin versus Sean Spears, and he also kind of mentioned that he may be doing something with Sting in the near future. So there you go.
Yes, and it's having to see Sting versus Tully in 2021 is hella weird, which is something I am not looking forward to. But I think Spears and Allen faced before. I don't seem to remember.
Maybe in
clearly,
the future, somewhere on a random Dynamite, I guess. But I don't remember.
Yeah, they're clearly building momentum for Sean Spears, which I think is great to see. He's someone who is eventually, at the end of the day, people will term him as a jobber in the Pinnacle, the guy who's going to take all the pins. But they're keeping everyone in the stable strong, and especially for Sean Spears, they are investing in him, giving him some momentum. Despite the loss of Stammy, he looked very strong, and now he picked up the win versus the Dark Order, and now he's going into a match with Darby Allin. So all in that case, I think it's good to see that he's also coming up the ranks a little, even if he's 40. And beyond that, I'd be interested to see Darby versus Spears, but Sting versus Tully, I'm not too comfortable with that. Like Sting, despite his age and his limitations, with the whole spinal stenosis, he's looked really great. Like even in the match versus Man of the Year at Double or Nothing, and that match at 2.0 like a few weeks ago, he's looked really good. But Tully Blanchard Tully Blanchard is 69 years old, I think, and Sting is 61 or 62. So
small interaction would be better, not a match. You don't need a match.
Yeah, small interaction would be fine. And given how AEW usually, takes these legends and pairs them up with the young up and coming talent who they want to get over. So it works that way. So I'd say, more of an interaction and not a match. I don't want to see a match between both of these guys. And I think the line that he said that Sting has been latching onto other people's fame for his is kind of true, because if history is to be believed, I hope it doesn't happen with Darby and Sting, but Sting is the most foolish person to be around when it comes to stables or tag teams, because he's the one who always gets betrayed, whether it was Luger or when he was in the Wolfpack, or Horseman is like a prime example. Whenever Sting and Ric Flair were a thing, Ric Flair used to always be, Main Event Mafia. So whenever there's always a stable or a tag team, and Ric Flair is like a clear example of that, Ric Flair and Sting, it always ends up in Sting getting his ass whooped by Flair or the Horseman. So it was a hilarious line from Tully when he said that. So it got a pop out of me.
Now to wait and see. That's next week. Before we move into the main event, Sammy Guevara, by the way, came out randomly. He was doing the sign bit, which I always like during the picture in picture break, and it all led to he was kind of talking about the great stuff that has happened to him in the last month or so. The signing of Fuego del Sol. Inner Circle is still intact. Him
Jericho,
being engaged now. Yes.
And Jericho beating MJF.
But it all led to him plugging his YouTube channel and the vlog. Nothing much.
Yeah, he's like summer was amazing. Now bigger and better things are to come, and I'll keep picking these wins. So probably they are building towards hopefully a TNT title match, or perhaps if he picks up more wins, probably even a world title match. I think I'd be down to see Kenny versus Sammy in some capacity.
Yeah, that would work. That would be better than
But
going after the TNT title shot. That would make more sense than Hobbs. See?
yeah, yeah. It would, but I was just talking about like in the present situation. Given Hobbs is number 2 right now, he's going to get number one eventually, and then face Kenny for the title. It only makes sense that way. But yeah, this is also something to look forward to if it happens, and it has to happen. Like if they do, it has to happen before Full Gear.
But shall we get on with this Shivani Elite, promo segment?
Yes, we shall.
So it was mainly, focusing Adam Cole. So Shivani was
Baby.
interviewing the Elite members. Yeah, of course. And then they did a special introduction, I should say, for Adam Cole.
Baby.
So Adam Cole comes out really over with the Cincinnati crowd. Adam Cole is great, but we have to work on that, the great, sync of the boom.
I think it worked because it's just Cole being a dickhead, and then he's just coming out, and then it's all about the boom, and then he goes then baby. He did it at the baby, so I think it was fair enough. Probably they'll do it later on, like the boom will be synced more properly, but I think it did work for me this time, first time.
So Adam Cole, from the get-go, it was about, he was, taking in the crowd responses and was about to, do his usual story time with Adam Cole, baby. He goes face to face with Tony Schiavone, and they discuss some important stuff here. Like, I know you are tight with Brit, but don't you ever dare give a look to her, or I will kick the shit out of you. And I really felt bad for Shivani. He ran him out of the ring. There you go, man.
Get out, nerd, you stupid nerd. And they were just professing on the nerd aspect, which is, it wasn't a nod to Good Brothers because fuck them. It was more because Adam Cole himself is a nerd in real life. Because with the whole gaming stuff on his Twitch, and being a part of the party on Up Down, so it was more a nod to that and not to the Good Brothers. And this kind of reminds me of when after Double or Nothing, when Kenny Omega was cutting a promo about there's no one left, and then Dark Order shows up to bid Hangman's case, and then he's like, Kenny says, "Why don't you and your little video game playing twerps get out of the back?" And it's just ironic because Kenny Omega himself is a huge gamer. So like these elite guys are good at being heels.
And by the way, should I talk about the Young Bucks? Matt Jackson was really killing the eyewear game here. You could call it drip or whatever. He's looking fantastic. And
he was literally looking great, which was nice. But then, what the fuck was Nick Jackson
wearing? What was Nick
wearing?
Jackson wearing, man? Was
He was wearing like a nose chain.
It was a earring plus nose ring type of deal. I don't know what that was, but there you go, man. So Adam Cole was cutting his typical promo here, putting over the elite and why he came here. He's a big veteran, etc., etc. Then we get to Kenny Omega, who is PWI's 500 #1 wrestler. Thoughts on that, man?
Yeah. Fair enough. He's had a hell of a year. Like throughout, with the matches. I think correct me if I'm wrong, but the PWI is like for an entire calendar year, or from the last rankings to the current ranking, to the current day rankings.
They mentioned from June 2020 to June 2021.
Fair enough. He's had a killer year from there on. Like after that, he had those matches with Mox, Hangman, and he became the belt collector from the, like, he's had a killer run, and he's easily the best wrestler in the world currently, so fair play.
Our tribal chief came at number 2.
Yeah, that's also, I mean, it's also fair that way, because even Roman, like, from June 2020 to June 2021, so Roman only returned in August, and then since then his reign of dominance has started. So I think fair play in that sense too. But Kenny becoming the belt collector just put him over the edge, and yeah, I mean, it's I think it's kind of pointless to argue about these things. And let me point out that PWI is, whatever they do is more into kayfabe. Like, even back then, like, Bill Apter is the main journalist. So whenever he used to cover pro wrestling stories in the 80s, it was entirely in kayfabe. So to keep the illusion of pro wrestling as a work shoot, whatever you want to call it, so it still runs that way, and it's completely based on the performances that they've given in the show, in their respective shows, and how they've come off. So I think it's good to see.
I'm surprised Ridwan made the list.
Yeah, he was in the top 10 actually. Like, he was ranked exactly number 10. So kudos to him. Kudos to him. Like, he's like, from, I don't watch Impact, like, I don't have the time to right now. But from what I've seen, like, he's been their top babyface for the most part. And he was like an Impact World Champion, winning it from Eric Young. And, like, he was working that injury that he had versus Eric Young, and then goes on to win from there, becomes the top babyface de facto of the company. And then he has that match, Motor City Machine Guns and him versus Kenny and the Good Brothers. And after that, he was the one who dropped the title to Omega. So he's been fairly in the limelight for the most part.
And by the way, even did you see the interaction between Omega and Osprey?
Yes. I don't remember what did Osprey say exactly, but then Omega just puts him to his place. Like, after we left, New Japan wasn't the same anymore, and like, you guys have been down in popularity while Elite AEW has always risen. If there's anything, we'll settle it in the ring. So Kenny has been teasing a possible New Japan return, if that's the case.
And he said a line where his only competition, you were not my competition, his only competition was a big dog.
Yes.
Puts over Roman there. See, he's a good guy.
He's terrific, man. Like, good to see Kenny acknowledging his competition.
Yeah, there you go, man. Osprey was in there, Ibushi, Shingo, Ridwan, Lashley. That speaks that it is a big kayfabe list.
Yes. I mean, Lashley's been awesome, like, since May 2020. So it makes sense for him to be there too. Moxley was number 6. It was kind of surprising. I thought he'd be a little higher, probably 5 or 4.
But there you go, man.
Top three was pretty apt. Fair.
Okay, it's a fine enough list. Can you top that? But sticking to the promo, and he was about to do, he was a little offended that someone interrupted him at the pay-per-view, and right on cue, Bryan Danielson then shows up, and he goes face to face with Omega, and Omega, by the way, ordered the Elite to leave the ring, and we had a proper face to face between Danielson and Omega, which was insane to see. And Danielson snatches the mic from Omega and asks the crowd, do they want to see Omega versus Danielson, something like that. Crowd chants yes, and there was a bit of argument here, and we get to Danielson locking in the yes lock on Omega. The Elite Company attack Danielson here. So Jurassic Express shows up to make the save. So they all chase out the Elite. By the way, Kazarian was also involved in that. Kazarian and Christian Cage, I believe. So
the Elite Hunter has to be there.
So the Elite is all taken down. We are left with Brandon Cutler, who's busy filming being the Elite in all this chaos. So he gets taken down by the running knee, and he didn't made sure he didn't leave the phone in his hand, which was hilarious. So there you go, man. That was the entire segment. My only question is, do you really want to see Bryan Danielson versus Omega right now?
Not now. Has to happen later on. So but I'll just take a step back from this and just get back to the Adam Cole promo. So it was good to see, I think someone like Adam Cole, it's finally getting to me that he's all elite, and it's also something like it hasn't sunk me for the longest time. But yeah, so getting back to this promo, of course, he was putting over the elite and like Omega and Bucks specifically. And then while the Good Brothers, like there was a tiny moment where the Good Brothers were hoping that he'd put them over to, and then there's Adam Cole, baby. And then you could see both Anderson and Gallows arguing to Callis, like, why didn't he put us over? So obviously you wouldn't want to put the Good Brothers over.
Right now.
Fuck them. Yeah, fuck them. So there's like I kind of like that, and given what we speculated on the All Out review that he's trying to get very close to Kenny and the Bucks so that he would eventually betray them.
He's the
So
snake.
yeah, I have a feeling of that too. And then there's like obviously we pointed out the PWI 500 list, and then from there Omega then takes the mic, and then you have the entire ordeal with Danielson and Kenny's promo, and then obviously the post-match beatdown, the promo beatdown. I like, did you notice how Marco Stunt just beats up Brandon Cutler over there?
Which was
I thought
funny.
that was hilarious. Yeah, it was hilarious. And then obviously we have like Luchasaurus picking up Stunt and throwing them onto the Young Bucks. And then Jungle Boy does a tope con hilo. So it was like a crowd service segment throughout, from the heels getting booed and Bryan Danielson showing up, and then the other baby faces helping them. Then the final knee by Bryan to Cutler. So I thought the segment was great. Nothing more to say.
We may be getting a big match at AfterAfter, somewhat of a tag match, I guess. Big tag match.
Yeah, probably an 8-man tag. Bucks, Cole and Kenny versus Danielson, Christian, Jungle Boy, and Luchasaurus.
Which would be a good enough match to sell that whole big Grand Slam show.
Yes, and obviously keep the crowd invested and happy. Or happy and invested.
Yeah, there you go, man. But like we were saying, this Bryan Danielson Omega match too soon.
Yeah, they won't do it anytime soon. Like obviously, Bryan has to pick up a lot of wins. And then Kenny was also saying, like, it doesn't work that way over here. And then he's like, oh, and then Kenny's telling me it doesn't work that way. I said, yeah, he's right. Like, he has to pick up a lot of wins. Then he has to reach number one, and then he has to face Kenny Omega. So he can't jump the queue.
We'll have to wait and see, man. God knows when Hangman will come back.
I'm not sure if if he has like, if the baby, if his wife has delivered the baby, and if he's coming anytime soon, because he is advertised for shows in October and November for AEW. So you could possibly expect him to come back pretty soon.
We'll have to wait and see. But there you go, man. And by the way, Adam Cole will be making his in-ring debut next week against the Elite Hunter, Frankie Kazarian.
Yes, that scissors kick from Kazarian was a small indication that it was going to happen. And this match is going to be great. Both of these guys have like a good amount of history between them, thanks to their ROH days. And when Kazarian was part of Bullet Club for like 2 weeks, remember that happening?
It was pretty random, I guess.
It was very random.
And by the way, we have to do something long term for Adam Cole and Jungle Boy.
Yes, I hope that's a match that we see, at like a special Dynamite episode, or perhaps if they are patient enough to keep it even at Full Gear, I would like to see that.
You can do that. But
And it's going to get Jungle Boy over huge.
so shall we move on to the main event?
Yes, we shall. You want
So
me to? Sorry, before we jump to the main event, do you want me to announce the matches for Rampage and Dynamite?
you can do that.
Okay, so this upcoming Rampage, you have Park versus Andrade, the match that we didn't get at All Out, and then we have a promo from Darby and Sting, and there's a trios women's tag match for Britt Baker, Jamie Hayter, and Reba versus Ruby Soho, Chris Statlander, and Riho. And then you have a singles match between Max Caster and Bryan Pillman Jr. And heading into next week's Dynamite, we have, as we discussed, Adam Cole versus Frankie Kazarian. We have Jade Cargill versus Layla Hirsch. So that's going to be an interesting match. And we have Darby Allin versus Shawn Spears. And they've also announced like matches for Grand Slam in advance, which is Cody versus Malakai and Pillman Jr. versus MJF.
Should be good. Should be good. But
let's
shall we
jump
get to the main event?
shall we?
So it was Minoru Suzuki who was facing John Moxley. So this was a homecoming for Mr. Moxley here. Really excited from the get-go here. Crowd is chanting holy shit when Suzuki came out. Everything is going good until we didn't get Kaze Ninare.
Yes, Tony Khan's become the biggest heel in wrestling right now.
That was bullshit, if you ask me.
Yep.
But we cut to Moxley's entrance and the crowd is going wild for him. So we get in the ring and from the get-go, we see forearm being exchanged. Crowd is going ape shit at this point in just a minute or so, and we see this is awesome chants. So they are exchanging forearm strikes, trying to knock down each other. So we get to the ropes here, and Suzuki, he locks in that signature armbar from the hanging armbar from the ropes, which always looks great. And then the match from there was Suzuki was targeting Moxley's arm. So that was the story. And we come back from commercial. They're still going at it, trying to knock each other. And at one point, Suzuki got busted open. And I wanted a real good shot of Suzuki, being this monster and him just bleeding. That would have been sick. We kind of got there, but the match is rushing. I will get to that. Match is rushing. So they're trying to knock each other with lariats and kicks. Suzuki goes down. And at one point, he did get the, sleeper hold and was going for the God-style pile driver. But Moxley escapes. It's a lariat. And finally, hits a Death Rider. Nowadays, it's looking like a suplex for some reason.
Suplex.
Yeah. So that got him the victory. And that was it. Only problem was the Kaze Ninare. That was the first problem, not being heard. Second was that this match was rushed.
Yes, the match was, it did feel a bit rushed, and they were just going spots after spots after spots, and then the Mox hits the normal DDT, and then he goes for the paradigm shift, which is now a butterfly suplex for some reason, which is bad.
Because the Death Rider is a little risky.
I guess, probably. So there you go. I mean, this was the match itself. I felt a bit let down, like despite, the strikes that they were exchanging, which was like tough as nails. Like both of these, they can put on a hard-hitting match as is expected from both of these guys. The finish was like a bit abrupt, which left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. But other than that, I don't have any complaints apart from the obvious Kaze Ninare thing. And then the rest of the show is just John Moxley milking the crowd, just enjoying with everyone, putting out signs. So that's how they had to close the show. Weird ending, but the match was fine.
At that point, it was a little let down. That's it. Suzuki, that's it for Suzuki on AEW. But we are getting a treat. Tony Khan is great, man.
Yes. So Tony Khan has redeemed himself now. So He cut off Kazeni Nare last week, but we're still getting Suzuki next week. So there's like a tweet that they put out, I think it was last night, where Lance Archer and Suzuki are posing, and they're like, Archer takes offense to Suzuki's loss to Moxley, as Archer is the protege of Suzuki, and they'll have a confrontation. Like Archer is going to call Mox out. Archer and Suzuki are going to call Mox out and address this issue on the upcoming episode of Dynamite. So probably we could either get that, or instead of Moxley, they'll be interrupted by Men of the Year, and then they'll beat up both Suzuki and Archer, and then we'll get that eventual tag match. Probably, or hopefully at the Arthur Ashe. Like 25,000 people singing Kazeni Nare would be a treat, wouldn't it?
Good. At this point, sign Suzuki to AEW.
He's not going to sign because he's a freelancer. He's just going to work anywhere he pleases. And wherever he goes, like, he's even, I think he was scheduled to wrestle Danny Garcia. I'm not sure if that is still there or has it happened already. And there's another GCW show that he was supposed to work. So there you go. These are eventually happening. So he's staying in US for probably a bit more than what we expected.
Like I said in the All Out review, New Japan is better in US compared to New Japan in Japan.
Weirdly, yes.
But there you go, man. That was the review for AEW Dynamite. And before we leave, where can these guys find you?
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at @Rid_Aman. And if you're watching this in video form, you'll probably see it in the right or left corner, whichever way it's going to be.
And you can find Slamhub Wrestling on Twitter at SlamHubW, Instagram at Slamhub Wrestling. You can catch the audio versions of this review on Anchor and Spotify as well. So this was the Dynamite review, and we'll see you guys next time.
Adios.